Most pastors I know, and I know a lot of pastors, spend, I don't know, about 10 to 20 hours every single week preparing sermons. And it makes sense. It takes a lot of work. We pour ourselves into crafting the as best we can the perfect 35 minutes, right? I mean, we want to polish the text and want to have strong illustrations and smooth transitions and a sticky statement that we hope never leaves their minds. But here's the thing, right? Preaching really matters. Preaching really matters. But if all of our energy is tied up in sermon prep, there's very little left for leadership. And leadership is what actually sustains the mission the other 6.5 days of the week. And that's really the pressure I think a lot of pastors feel, right? I mean, great sermons, but churches still feel stuck. I've met pastors who could just preach circles around anyone else. Some of the best communicators I've ever heard, but their churches are plateaued. In a lot of cases, actually declining. If it certainly wasn't because of the preaching. I mean, their preaching was great, but it was because of leadership capacity. Leadership capacity just was not there. I mean, a great sermon can inspire, but leadership is what turns inspiration into transformation. I mean, without leadership, sermons become really a roller coaster. Lots of Sunday highs, lots of energy in the room, but no real lasting momentum on Monday. And that's why so many churches kind of feel like a yo-yo. They go up on Sunday and they drop right back down during the week, and the trends are just plateaued. I mean, you can kind of think of it this way, like preaching really does reach ears, but leadership shapes culture. Preaching inspires maybe for a moment, but leadership builds momentum, the kind that really can last. Preaching can stir emotion, but leadership channels those emotions into action. That's why preaching fills seats, but leadership builds the church. If all you ever do is preach, I mean, you'll get people to show up. But if you want them to grow up, to serve, to give, to multiply, leadership has to carry that weight. Now, there is some great news here, right? Growing as a leader doesn't mean adding 20 more hours to your week. You don't have to have another 20-hour commitment for this. But what you do need is some small and very intentional shifts built into your weekly rhythm. I've been thinking a lot about this because, again, I know a lot of pastors, but my job, I work with pastors and churches. I consult and coach, and when I am working with these churches and working with these pastors, this inevitably is one of the most important conversations we end up having. How are they growing as a leader? Now, it's probably noted, the reason that they have brought me in to work with them is because they want to grow as a leader and they want their church to grow. And so therefore, they're already thinking this way. So you may be there already. You may have a coach you're working with, or maybe you have never really thought about how to grow as a leader. And maybe it feels overwhelming to even think about it. So let me give you six. I'm going to give you six, okay? Practical shifts or things that you can do that aren't going to require taking on a whole part-time job to do it, okay? So here's the first one. Listen to a leadership podcast on your commute. I mean, very basic, okay? But I mean, you've already got windshield time built in probably. So it may be 5 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, hopefully not longer. But what if you just swapped out the sports talk or the political commentary for a solid leadership podcast? Like over the course of a year, think about it. That's dozens of hours of free development without adding a single block to your calendar. So very simple, but be intentional about that. All right, number two, just read one leadership book each quarter, like not every week. You don't have to do it every week. You don't have to become a bookworm, right? But 10 minutes a day will get you through 4 leadership books a year, actually a little more. Imagine how much insight you could glean from 4 books on leadership. right? Like, think of what you could bring to your staff, to your volunteers, like even to your sermons, simply by building in a 10-minute reading rhythm. That could be in the morning, maybe after a devotion. It could be the first thing you do when you get to your office at work. It could be the thing you do right before you go to bed. Again, but make it a habit so that it becomes a rhythm. All right, here's the third one. Now, this is going to sound self serving, but don't hear it this way. I think every pastor, I think every leader, but every pastor especially, I think you need a leadership coach. Every great leader has one. Like athletes, they don't step on the field without a coach, right? I mean, why would pastors try to lead without one? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like a coach gives you outside perspective that you can't get from inside. They're going to see blind spots. They're going to challenge assumptions, and they're going to keep you moving forward. So when you think about finding a coach, here's one thing I will promise you. It is very rare for you to approach someone and ask them if they can coach you and them not want to do that. Because if they have done something worth doing, they're probably the kind of person that is more than willing to pour their thimble of information into your cup. And so find someone, and by the way, not just who is older and has done it before, find someone who understands what it looks like to sit in your seat, to face the pressure that you're facing, and who is a great leader, who has led through it. I have lots of pastor friends that have like coaching networks or friendship networks, but they're having coffee with people who aren't great leaders. And that's fine for relationships. And if you're trying to work on something like preaching, then yeah, go find a preacher who is crushing it to help you understand their approach, how they study, how they, craft the architecture of content. But if you want to be a better leader, find a leader who has been there and who has done it and has kind of the chops to help you. Okay, number 4. And this is going to be a little different because this is going to sound like it's helping somebody else, but it's going to help you. Mentor one emerging leader in your church. You know this, like we often grow the most by teaching, right? So pick one person, and just one. Don't get crazy here. Just pick one person and meet with them maybe once a month. Listen, ask questions, share your experiences. And you know what happens? Those kinds of conversations, they actually compound over time. And then the ripple effect in your church is massive. But mentoring really is leadership multiplication, right, at its best. But it isn't just for the mentee. It's also for the mentor. As I mentioned, I have been coaching professionally now, right, for 5 years. Now, I did lots of consulting and coaching in my marketplace background before I got into ministry. And even in ministry, I did a lot of kind of preaching on the road and strategic consulting and things like that. But, now I'm doing it full time. It is my job. I will tell you, in the last 4 or so years, I have learned so much about discipleship pathways and preaching and staff development and leadership, organizational structures, because I'm coaching, right? I didn't know everything I know now when I started. I have learned so much along the way. Why? Because when we teach, we learn as well. So teach, mentor somebody. Okay, number 5. This is going to take a little bit of time, okay? But block 1 hour a week for thinking. And I would say you got to put it on your calendar. And it may be crazy when you look at your calendar, but you need to block 1 hour. Okay, you need to, take that for what it's worth. I believe you need to block 1 hour on your calendar, just like you would protect it for sermon prep, right? So no meetings, no calls, no distractions, just you, a notebook, a book you're reading, and maybe just one question. What does my church need from me as a leader right now? Maybe that's the question that you ponder for 1 hour, just 1 hour each week. What does my church need from me as a leader right now? So one protected hour a week will sharpen your clarity. I think you'll be shocked at what that 1 hour can do. And it'll help prevent some drifting. All right, here's the last thing. I'd love for you to consider joining a leadership community outside of your church. Okay. Get in a room, it can be real or virtual, it doesn't matter, but with leaders from other churches, business leaders, maybe from nonprofit spaces. Some of the best ideas I have ever implemented came from leaders in completely different contexts. So you don't just need like church insights. Again, we're trying to grow as leaders, which means you need leadership insights, and those can come from lots of great places. So, six different things. When you integrate those six habits, I will promise you this, something powerful will shift. You'll feel the pressure lift. And sermons won't be carrying the entire weight of ministry anymore. Like instead, your leadership will give those sermons some real staying power. They won't just inspire in the moment, they will catalyze transformation over time. That's really when churches kind of move from full rooms on Sunday to transform lives on Monday. And, I think that's what you really want, right? Like, you don't just want bigger crowds and more head nodding. You want change. That's why you got into this. So here's my challenge for you. Just pick one of those six leadership habits and start this week. Just one. Okay. Don't overthink it. If you want to overachieve and do more than one, have at it. But just pick one at a minimum. Just pick one and build it into the rhythm of your week. Because, and we know this, but let me just remind you, small, consistent steps compound into big leadership growth. And remember, right? Don't just be a better preacher, right? Be a better leader. Your church needs both, but only leadership will carry the mission forward.